but I have had the best day today, and I get to round it off with some fabulous whiskies. So, yep, happy days.
Yeah, because for the more observant viewers, they'll notice that Christy is definitely not in her usual environment.
I am not. I am in London because, so you know how sometimes when you get a bottle of whiskey, it's got like a medal on it, and sometimes, you know, different awarding bodies. So I've been judging with IWSC today, and it's the first in-person spirits I've done. I can't even think how long. So I feel like the world is coming back to normal a little bit, and it's just been fantastic. I've been doing Asian spirits today, so whiskey a little bit different, but fabulous all round.
What's the best thing you tried?
Well, you don't know because they don't tell you what it is. You get like a number code and this kind of thing. So yeah, there's an inside scoop there for you if you want to know how the inner workings of spirits competitions. You get delivered like a tray of like maybe 6 or 10 spirits, and you have no idea what they are. There's a letter and a number, and you nose them all and write your tasting notes, and then you decide on your panel like if you're sort of in the same ballpark or not, and then you give them a medal. So I've had some amazing show-choos, I will say, like absolutely delicious. If you haven't tried it and you like fairly pronounced, but these are quite floral, quite delicate and quite expressive.
I drank that a lot in South Korea, and they call it happy water over there.
Happy water. That's kind of cute. Well, we call whiskey the water of life, right?
That's exactly it. It's the water of life. Exactly.
Yes. And how's your day been, Andy? What's new in your world?
My day has been involved in looking after my 8-week-old child, which is
so small
and very intense. But, yeah, and sorting out loads of other different things for my my other job when I'm not doing whiskey stuff. I'm a musician, and we're opening back up some of our venues. So I've been working with other musicians trying to book gigs and stuff like that. And yeah, a lot of it is still going ahead, which is really nice to see, obviously with limited capacities.
Yeah, we're still playing within some rules, but yeah, it sounds like a good day as well. And we've got a lot of people tuning in already. Gareth's saying that the drams are poured. He's already having a sneaky nose, which is very exciting. Elle Sutton, I second this. I keep thinking that Pour and Sip should organise a whiskey tasting weekend. I would love that. When all these restrictions are gone, let's do it. It'll be like Scout Camp, but for grown-ups.
But I should say, with the restrictions kind of getting eased, and like you said, you did the first tasting in person, hopefully one day us Pour and Sippers will be able to taste in person. It would be wonderful.
I know, it would be fabulous. So if you're tuning in this evening, welcome. If it's your first time, additional Big Fat Pour and Sip, welcome to you. We love it when you get involved and you join in. So send your comments, tasting notes, questions, pop it in the comments, and we'll see them and we'll get through as many as we can. A couple of points of order. So first of all, we have 2 guests this evening, which is an absolute treat. We've got Lo, who's going to join us from Sagamore, who's going to have a chat with Andy. And Alex from, I want to say Stauning, will be revealed. It's going to have a...
We'll soon find out.
We'll soon find out. Fresh, sadly, from a football defeat, we have to say. And that's the second point of order is, obviously, I suspect there'll be some football fans watching this. So it's completely allowed for you to have Pour and Sip on one screen in front of the telly with the Netherlands. And who are they playing? Austria. Netherlands, Austria, right, at 8 o'clock?
Yes, absolutely. So do let us know the score. But like we said, it's highly lucky that it's not England, Scotland tonight, because there could have been some rows within the comments, I think.
Although imagine, we were saying this earlier, imagine like if you were like doing English versus Scotch whiskey at the same time as the match was on. Who
would win, everybody? Who would win? That's the question.
The football or the whiskey?
The whiskey. That's another point. We definitely know who's going to win the football. Mike Pizarro, Few made it. Whiskey ready. Wallet bracing itself. That's what we like to see. Garrett's already opened up. The nose on both of these are really interesting. The Sagamore smells so strong proof than the Stauning, despite being less alcohol percentage. It's a really good idea to pour your drams before we start rambling on, because a little bit of air does kind of open these drams up a bit and gives it a little bit of time to kind of sit in the glass and open up all those flavours. Speaking of flavours, if you are new here, and I do say this often, please do come in with all of your tasting notes. Please let us know what you think about these whiskies. There are no right or wrong answers. We love to read your tasting notes. If you've got any questions for the guests, fire away. If you think they're really stupid, do not worry about it. We'll ask it anyway. So yeah, really get involved. That's the whole point of Pour and Sip. We're a big community. So yeah, don't be scared if you're new to kind of join in.
Yeah, 100%. There is no such thing as a stupid question. We all drank whiskey for the first time once, right? And now we're all completely geeky about it. So whether this is your first dram or your 1000th dram, like all welcome, all ask questions. Let's just get involved. Really excited.
Yeah.
And we kind of accidentally got a little bit of a theme for the evening, right?
Yes, she says with a wry smile. Sorry.
He had to get it in there. He could not resist.
One rubbish pun out of the way. And it's not even mine, which makes it even worse. Jake's.
Andy, second-hand jokes. But if they work, they work. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, both these whiskies are ryes, and I can't wait to find out more. I feel like rye is a grain that's making the headlines a lot more these days, and with good reason. So if rye is your thing, you are in for a treat. And if it isn't, you're about to have some new discoveries.
Exactly. A lot of you have been requesting more rye from the boxes. So here we are delivering with some new rye, and two that are really kind of new. And I mean, I've not tried either of these before, so super excited about these ones.
And I've just heard from Giovanna that for some reason we've got some technical issues that we're not live on Facebook yet. If you're watching this behind the times, speed up, and we'll hold up for your questions. We're going to have both guests back at the end. So if you're watching this on a bit of a delay later on, don't panic. There's still opportunities to get your questions in. So fret not. We've got your back. We've got your back.
We've got your back, pour and sippers.
Yes. I feel like it's time to get our first guest on. What do you think?
Absolutely. He's been waiting long enough. We've rambled on enough.
Fantastic. So we're going to go all the way to America and bring in Lo. Let me just buzz him in right now. Hey there, Lo. How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good for me. Yeah. I mean, it's early for you still, right?
Yes. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. How are you guys doing this at night? I don't know.
It's just after 7:30, so it's definitely whiskey o'clock, I would say.
It's definitely whiskey o'clock. I'm pretty sure the weather's better where you are as well, because it's turned here, as you know, Christy.
It has turned. Well, not necessarily for the worse. I mean, it's a bit more comfortable, but there we go.
Better running.
Right. Better running weather for sure. I'm going to leave you guys to it. I've got my dram here. I'm ready to tune in and listen along and write along. And I will catch you in a bit. I'm really excited to discover this one.
Awesome. Bye, Christy.
See you soon.
See you later. So
I've taken the wrong.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Anyway, Lo, how are you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So talk to us a bit about yourself and how you got involved with the distillery and your background in whiskey.
Excellent. Yep. So I'm Lo. I am originally from Maryland, and that's where we're located, Baltimore, Maryland. But basically, I got started here because we are such a young company. And just working and living around the Baltimore area, I actually went to school up here, university, and just all of a sudden I was kind of working retail, and this buzz of this company started to just kind of pop up all over the place. So once I got down here and was able to just set my eyes on the location and the facility, and it blew me away. I got to meet a lot of the staff, the early staff, and they basically told me the story of Sagamore Spirit and how it comes from just a long history of Maryland rye whiskey, and how that was kind of overshadowed over the course of many, many years, and how they're here to bring it back. So this is my 4th year at Sagamore Spirit, which is super exciting, and I can't wait to see what we do next.
That's awesome. It's great. So we'll get more onto the kind of Maryland rye whiskey kind of thing. Talk to us. What's your day-to-day like at the distillery?
Great question. So basically, I'll get here early in the morning, and I'm on the hospitality side most of the time, so I am interacting with guests. I do a lot of these types of tastings, mostly in person at this point. So,
usually in person and also in America, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. What we'll do is walk guests through our entire facility. We'll walk them through our history, exactly what we do day to day when it comes to fermentation, distillation. We give them a little bit of the aging process. We come through with the bottling line, and then at the very end, we give them a tasting of our whiskey.
Awesome. That sounds super exciting. Just looking at some of the comments here. Ian Turner, where's the cap, Andy? I was only wearing a cap during lockdown when the hairdressers were shut, and I think my hair now is just about an acceptable length not to wear a cap. So it might be coming back if the hairdressers get shut again. Lots of people booing me for my pun. Yeah, a lot of people saying these bottles are great. So talk to us a bit about Sagamore and the history behind, because like you were saying, there was rye whiskey was really popular in Maryland, Baltimore, which I'm really sorry, but I only find I know Baltimore for The Wire, if you've ever seen The Wire, and that's probably the last thing Baltimore wants to be represented by.
Fantastic show. Draws a lot of people here every year, and also keeps some people away. But,
I was going to say, it must keep a lot of people away.
No, but Yeah, so dating back to the 1700s, local tobacco farmers, Maryland tobacco farmers, were using rye grain as a cover crop. So basically, they'd harvest their tobacco, plant rye in that exact same soil just to replenish the nutrients so that by the next harvest, they could have the freshest soil possible. Now, instead of getting rid of the excess rye, they began using it to create whiskey. I will say, leading up to probably the 1900s, rye whiskey in Maryland wasn't something you would go to for its flavor. It was just mainly there because it was whiskey. Now, beginning in the 1900s is when we started to focus in more on our taste profile and exactly where we wanted to go and make Maryland rye unique. Now, rye in general is considered bourbon's older brother because before Kentucky was even founded, Maryland existed, about 140 years to be exact. So whenever anybody does have those questions regarding, why is rye kind of just now coming back onto the scene or coming onto the scene period, mainly it's because when we converted our distilleries based in Maryland to ethanol plants to support the war effort, World War II, 100% of them didn't come back to produce rye. And it took many, many years for Maryland rye whiskey to even be considered one of the premier rye whiskeys on the market. So that's why Sagamore Spirit exists, just bringing that Maryland rye history back. And we want to be the premier distiller of it in the nation and hopefully one day the world.
That's amazing. That's a great story as well. Is there something different about rye in Maryland and its kinds of flavor profile in comparison to other ryes you get in the States?
Yes. So for us, what we do is we incorporate a larger percentage of corn on top of our larger percentage of rye. Now that's why you're going to get a little bit more of a sweetness from Maryland style rye than you would any other. And we do pride ourselves in saying that basically we want to maintain the hardiness of that spice that is rye, but we also do want to kind of invite you into that spice and that taste profile using a little bit of that corn as well.
That's great, because a lot of ryes you find on the market at the moment are like kind of 100% rye. So, I mean, we're talking, what's the mash bill we're talking here?
Exactly. So we have a 2-recipe mash bill. So we actually use a high rye, which is just 95% rye, 5% malted barley. And then we also use a mid rye, which is about 52% rye, 43% corn, and then 5% malted barley.
Okay.
So that's where you see that difference.
And that's definitely where you're getting that sweetness come through on the nose instantly. It's not got that usual kind of massive hit of rye that you would get, I don't know, with 100% rye, something like a whistle pick or something like that. There's like this sweetness coming through, which is really, really wonderful, actually. Someone has written here a Werther's Original. I don't know if you get Werther's Originals in the States.
So we do get a few of those, but we try to test out the market just to see exactly where we sit amongst a lot of ryes. But with us, again, a lot of people have started to go over it more into the Maryland style because of that sweetness, like you said.
Okay, that's great. Lots of notes coming in. Super sweet, Steve Coleman is saying. Steve Coleman also saying hard candy on the nose, vanilla candy on the nose. El Sutton, oak and olive oil on the nose for me. Really interesting tasting note. Gerard McNeely, toasted marshmallows or even s'mores as it's American. Pesho, get butter. Rob Best, vanilla custard on the nose, really creamy. We've got oak mead, molasses and fudge on the nose. Peanut butter, says Anil D. It's very dark. Is it natural color is the question.
Yes, so we do a 100% natural aging process. We don't climate control our rick houses or our aging barns. So we allow the barrels to actually take on what it will. And all of that comes directly from our 4-year aging process.
Wow, I mean, that's really amazing. It's a beautiful color, this whiskey. And Steve Chant saying, wow, much sweeter than I anticipated. Well, guys, we've given this a nose. Shall we have a sip? So cheers, everybody. And just a little one. Exactly. Pour and sip, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, this is my first time trying this, actually.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I love it. It's much sweeter, so that corn really comes through on the palate just as much as it does on the nose, the high corn. And the fudge is a really good note, but the rye is still prominent. It's not hidden underneath the corn. It's still there. So it's just beautifully balanced, this whiskey, between the rye and the corn. And I think that sets it apart as well from tasting other kind of more of the high rye models from your High West, for example, or Whistle Pig or stuff like that. This is really different, and that's really good because I expect that from what you guys are saying with Maryland rye whiskey.
Yep, so that's exactly what we were going for. It's a straight up and down Maryland rye profile. We put our little spin on it so that, as you said, that rye still does kind of have a slow, warming, permeating sensation on the finish. And a lot of our guests do enjoy it.
That's great. David Walcott, vanilla orange peel as well on the nose. James Fallon, butterscotch for me. Peter Gould from the left field, I detect a hint of orange. Pesho is saying, is there enough enzymes from 5% barley?
So we do actually use a great type of malted barley, and that's primarily what we use it for. Since we do those two recipes that I mentioned before, that 5% plus 5%, those are actually what's going to give us, again, more of that sugar that we're going to need from the corn and the rye.
Great. Peter Gould from the left field, I detect a hint of orange on the nose. I get a hint of orange on the palate as well, definitely kind of orange peel, candied orange peel. Alistair Taff is saying fig rolls on the palate. Loads of tasting notes coming through. Jordan is saying cinema sweet popcorn, ripe gooseberries on the palate. It's a great tasting note. So talk to me as well. So, I mean, Sagamore is a young distillery.
Yes.
And obviously, are you aging your own stock as we speak? And is it nearly...
So, yeah, as I said before, this is my 4th year, and we do, again, that 4-year standard aging time. So we are actually currently rolling out our Baltimore born and bred product, and it's excellent. So you can definitely start seeing a lot more of Sagamore popping up in the market, especially now that we are going into our 10th year as a company.
Wow, that's awesome. So, I mean, when can we expect to see the full Sagamore bottle on the...
Right now, we are actually starting to roll it out. So you'll start seeing a little bit of a shift in the taste profile here in the, I would say, next 6 months or so.
That's great. Because, I mean, what I find really interesting is, obviously, if anyone knows, this is a very young distillery. So you've had to take some stock from elsewhere in order to get your whiskey. Now, a lot of people kind of doubt this, or they kind of criticize this. I don't criticize it. I had a really good analogy about that. It's like if you go to the butcher to get a really good steak, you go to the butcher to get that steak. You don't kill the cow yourself. And it's exactly the same thing. But what I find really interesting for you guys is you're doing it very differently. You're not just sourcing a mash bill that's been made by wherever it's been made. Wherever you're sourcing it from, you've kind of specified yourself exactly what you want.
Exactly. So Indiana has a distillery known as MGP. They're basically who we had a contract with in the very beginning when we became a company, so that we could have a good amount of backlog by 2016, so we could have that 4-year-old whiskey on the market. And then by 2017, that's when we had our own facility, and now we're making our own juice.
And that's amazing stuff, and it tastes great. What other drinks have you got in the line? So you're really just producing rye whiskey. There's no bourbon that you're producing.
Not yet, not yet. I wouldn't be surprised if down the line Sagamore Spirit did branch out. However, we did want to get the brand more familiar on the market before we did start rolling anything else out. And again, we are very dedicated to Maryland Rye Whiskey. That's
great. I mean, I think it really helps with the kind of unification of the brand. And when people see a brand and they go, that's the brand, they're the rye guys. And I'm looking for a rye whiskey, Sagamore. That's a great thing. What other ryes have you got? I mean, you've finished some ryes in some strange casks as well.
Well, so what I have next to me are 3 core products. So what we're tasting today is the Signature, which you're most familiar with if you are a fan of Sagamore Spirit. We also have a Double Oak, which we just finished, or excuse me, we aged twice. So we take our 4-year whiskey, put it into another new cask, and then we age that for about 1 year and 10 months. This one's 96.6 proof. We get a little bit more of that almost roasted marshmallow kind of campfire smoke on the finish. And then you move into our cask strength, which is our highest proof, which is about 112.2 proof. And this one I'd say is the foundation of everything that you're having today. So you would basically add water to the cask strength, create the Signature, you put the cask strength into that second oak barrel, create the Double Oak. So we do have 3 as core, but then we also have tons of other reserves as well.
That's great, and that's really interesting. I was wondering, you probably get this question quite a lot, and this is a question from me. And obviously, I ask it a lot with rye in particular, because I think rye is such an amazing grain, but rye whiskey works so well with cocktails, and so many, you know, the cocktails we drink go better with rye whiskey. What would you pair this with? What kind of cocktail would you use for this?
So my personal favorite cocktail, I love an old fashioned, nice and easy. Whiskey, some type of sugar element, whether it's sugar or simple syrup, and then bitters. But we also have those who are fans of Manhattans, of course, Boulevardiers, Sazeracs.
Sazerac's my favorite, I have to say, for anyone. And I mean, I love Sazerac Ryes and the bottle of Sazerac Rye, but I absolutely love a Sazerac. Ever since I went to New Orleans, I mean, that just Sazeracs in New Orleans is amazing.
So good. I love absinthe, so that.
Oh
Man.
See, The danger for me is when during lockdown, I was making my own Sazeracs at home, and usually it's an absinthe rinse. You know, you rinse the glass with absinthe, but I want to save that absinthe. I'm not chucking that away. I absolutely love absinthe. I have to be honest with you.
We've actually experimented with absinthe shooters on the side. So you do the water drip, and you actually have a little dram of absinthe, and then you make your Sazerac in just a regular glass, almost like an old fashioned, and then you have the two. And then you'll take a sip of one, take a sip of the other, and just kind of put that pairing together. So another little experiment for our fan.
Wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. I'd love to try it. Ali C is saying, so with the 4-year aging, are we now drinking the blend or the Sagamore distilled product?
So you are drinking the blend. However, this was distilled in Indiana. This is the first year you're going to start seeing our very own Baltimore born and bred start at the market. Okay.
And that's great. I mean, are there any other Baltimore kind of distilleries coming through at the moment, or is that you guys
corner the market? No, we definitely have great relationships with a few of the other distilleries. I would say you have Baltimore Spirits Company. They're actually 100% rye. Believe Old Line is making a rye as well, but those are the two other prominent ones. But yes, we are probably the largest and the one with the best view, to be honest.
Yeah. No, but it's great to see because I mean, I've never. I mean, even though, as you said, like rye whiskey was so popular and invented in Maryland, and we know we associate it with that. So it's great that you guys are bringing it back and kind of time and place. I always say this about whiskey: like the stuff we drink should have a time and place. And when you're drinking this, you should be smelling and tasting a bit of Baltimore.
Oh yes.
Just not the wire. Rob Bester is saying, "What is in a Sazerac?" Probably bad spelling there. A Sazerac is absinthe, rye whiskey, Peychaud bitters, which are the New Orleans bitters, and I think simple syrup. Don't quote me on that.
Yep.
Sounds good. And that is my favourite cocktail as well. And I can imagine that a Sazerac would be absolutely beautiful. Kevin O, fig rolls, little cinnamon, orange and brown sugar, lovely dram. Not familiar with rye, but would 100% add this to my collection. That's a great shout. I mean, if you go onto the Pour and Sip store, you will find this bottle and you'll get your discount on it. So feel free. So what is, obviously we discussed, you know, where you guys are at the moment and you're producing your own brand. What is the future hold for Sagamore going forward? What can we expect from you guys? You hinted at maybe doing bourbon.
Well, great question. So in the next, I'd say year or two, we are going to focus in on our finished products. So what we'll do is basically go out to the market, and if we have a taste profile in mind, I believe we have 3 lineups that we try to focus on. Vintner's finishes, which are our wine finished whiskeys, brewer's finishes, which are our beer finished whiskeys, and then we have what's called a barrel select. Okay. Now, barrel select is what you're going to see, I'd say most often than not, come out of our distillery as our exclusive or extremely exclusive products, meaning that we only do about 210 bottles of those every, I'd say, other season or so. Now, I think that's what a lot of our whiskey thieves, which are our ambassadors, basically, they look forward to most, just because no one barrel select tastes the same, and we take very, very, very big pride in releasing a barrel select every now and then. So those are the big 3 that you'll start seeing here soon. Will those barrel selects ever reach these shores, though? That's the thing. If we do allow any type of collaboration with a key account, probably. However, you would probably have to come over across the pond to try some of those barrel selects. I would love to come over to the pond when it's allowed. I would absolutely love to. James Fallon saying, real orange oil hand cleaner on the finish. Nigel Game, I'm getting bubblegum type aroma. Joe F, absolutely love the smell of the empty glass from American whiskies. This is a great one. Yeah, absolutely. My glass isn't quite empty at the moment because I've been talking so much. I'm going to have one more try of this. And thanks so much for coming on, Lo, and talking with us about Sagamore. I think it's a super interesting brand that you've got. And I think it's really interesting seeing something come from Maryland, Baltimore. Yes, thank you. Cheers. Cheers. Yeah, as well on the finish, I always get this from rye, is that kind of licorice, star anise kind of spices as well. That is really wonderful. A bit of black pepper as well finish.
But I think for me, the thing that's really, really beautiful about this one is the sweetness when it first goes into your mouth on the arrival, and that palate is really not. It's quite creamy. It's it's got that lovely corn in the mash bill. I think it's really wonderful stuff.
We appreciate it very, very much so.
Have you got a favourite from the range?
From our lineup?
Yeah.
So the signature through and through is something I'll reach for. But I will have to say that our double oak does give me a little bit more of a heavier mouthfeel, something a little bit more on the side of tradition of the old distilleries that used to exist in Maryland. But it also does still give us the same flair that Sagamore Spirit puts in all of their products.
Is this very similar to that? I mean, is an old school Maryland rye whiskey, would that have been at a much higher proof?
Yes. So this one is, like I said, 96.6 proof, but it does have just a nice, I would say, palate coating, kind of lingering flavor profile. And it's something that does fit nicely between these two because it does have the sweetness of the signature, but it also does have that extra lingering spice of the cash strain. So it sits right there in the middle for a reason. That's
great. Great stuff. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us, Lo. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to someone from America as well. It's the amazing thing about the internet is that we can do this now. So that's the amazing thing, really. So thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you again.
And I'll invite Christy back to talk to... hello, Christy. Did you enjoy that dram?
Lo, I have been sipping along and listening and just finding it like so aromatic. There's a real like herbaceousness in there as well that I'm really enjoying, in with the orange notes and the fruitiness and all of this. And yeah, I think that's a real signature for rye. So yeah, living my best life over here. Rye whiskey on a Thursday. What more could you want?
Lots of people thanking Lo. Pesho is thanking Lo, says thank you very much. Your Uncle Vanya, Sagamore is now about to sit next to my almost empty Few bottle. Thank you, Pour and Sip, for another intro to another great rye. Yeah, I think the Few was an amazing one and that was super popular, and it's looking like this one is heading the same way to popularity with the Pour and Sippers. James Fallon, I think this one will be on my American whiskey shelf soon. Shelf soon, that's a hard thing to say. Yes. Bruce Edwards, yes, I would put this in the cupboard. Nice to have a variety of options depending on the mood for a dram. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lo, for joining us.
Amazing. And Lo, if you'll hang around and join us for the last couple of minutes, we'll have another geeky chat then with everyone. Catch you in a bit.
Right.
Cheers, mate.
Wonderful. What a joy that was. Oh my goodness.
What a great start.
What a great start. And we are halfway through the proceedings. We have a whole another guest to chat through. And we have got another rye whiskey. So what are we waiting for? Shall we see if Alex is there, joining us all the way from Denmark? So we've gone that side of the pond. Now we're going over here. And welcome, Alex. Hey there. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you? Fine, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes. Thank you for joining us on this very special, I'm going to call it Rye Thursday. I feel like this should be a thing now.
Rye Thursday.
Thursday.
I'm game.
Amazing. Now, we do have to say, we've got another game about to kick off that, I mean, the game this evening with Denmark and Belgium was quite astonishing.
It was a good game, but we lost. So I'm
I know.
Yeah, sorry.
So sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Give me up.
The commitment of Alex coming on to talk about whiskey when his nation has just lost in the Euros. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, no worries. I'll do my best.
It's a sign of true whiskey dedication, and we are very grateful for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So I'm going to say bye to Andy for now. We'll zip him off, but he will be back. Do not fret. And we are going to take a trip over to Denmark to visit you through the medium of a tasting glass. But first of all, to clear up, Stauning. Stauning, right, exactly. There we go. Now we all know, you have to ask the question. No such thing as a silly question.
Yeah.
We've got it, Stauning. Now, I understand that the distillery, the idea came about with a group of friends way back in 2005. Have I got this right? I feel like this is a fairly epic tale for a distillery that might be quite new to a lot of people.
Exactly. Well, we were, in the beginning, actually, there was only one guy sitting in a car listening to a radio program. This program was about whiskey. And they said, it's easy to make whiskey, but it's difficult to make a good whiskey. And his name was Martin Vesterby, and he's now one of my co-founders. And he went to a summer house and met the family, and he said, I've heard this radio program about whiskey, and they say it's easy to make whiskey. Why don't we try? So he didn't mention anything about the hard part, making a good whiskey, but only the easy part. And the family was like, but Martin, we don't know anything about whiskey. How can we know? Yeah. We will learn, let's just try out. So they agreed on calling some friends, and I'm one of the friends. So we were 9 people that met up 2-3 weeks after his initial meeting, or listening to the radio program. And Martin and Jesper and Lasse, 3 brothers, they had made a PowerPoint presentation on how to make whiskey. And it was kind of, Google how to make whiskey. Then you get kind of 10 million hits on how to make a whiskey. And they were like, that one. And we met up, and they had this presentation, and we were like, the rest of us was like, easy peasy. Let's try it out, making the first Danish single malt. Well, we didn't make the first Danish single malt. That was made in 1950 something, so many years ago. But it wasn't a success in the 1950s. So we started in 2005, made the first distill in 2006. And this was spare time. It was a hobby. So, and it's a funny group of people. We're 9 people all in all. 4 engineers, 1 helicopter pilot, a doctor, a chef, a butcher, and a teacher. So 9 extremely different persons. But I again think that was actually the strength of the group, that we were so different. Teacher knew about whiskey, history about whiskey. The butcher and the chef knew about food, handling food. The doctor about enzymes and bacteria. Engineers, Excel sheets, calculations, temperatures, flow, all that. Helicopter pilot, what can a helicopter pilot bring to this? Well, you don't make mistakes when you're a helicopter pilot. So every time we were about to do shortcuts, you were like, no. So that's the group of people.
So I feel like we can play a game with this. Which one were you of the 9? Which job did you do before? I'm going to get people to guess in the comments, and then we'll come back to it, because I think that would be quite fun. But I have another observation from this, and it's like, why do you think 2005 was the right time for Danish whiskey? So they've been done before in the 50s. Like, why have you guys found so much success?
Basically, luck, something about luck.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
I'm back.
Sorry, we lost you briefly. That's all good. I was like, is he thinking about this question for a long time?
No, a bit of luck, timing. And I think Mackmyra in Sweden started up a few years before this. And as I remember, the Swedes kind of took in single malt back to kind of Scandinavia. That kicked off the interest for single malts, and had been dead for many years, but it brought it to life again. I think Danes and Norwegians and people from Finland kind of brought it back, the interest for single malt whiskey. So probably that. And then we started, and a few others started shortly after, and now I think we are 30 whiskey distilleries in Denmark. Small ones though, but a lot of things, like the rest of the world. New World whiskey is just kicking up everywhere. It's just it's amazing what's going on.
It is, and it's incredible. And I feel like these distilleries like yours, like you mentioned, Kiro and Mackmyra and a few others, it's just so much passion. Everyone is just so almost flavor obsessed and quality obsessed, and just trying to do like the absolute best thing. And something else I wanted to ask you about is the sense of place element. So when I was researching about your distillery, it seems like you're extremely proud of where you are in the world and trying to bring all the elements of that to life. So how do you bring the landscape into your whiskey making?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to say, I'll mention how we started, what we tried to do as the first whiskey, because again, this was a hobby project. The project was to try to make a whiskey in Denmark. That's it. Can we do that? And we decided that the easiest way to learn is do.
Yes.
Learning by doing. And we didn't know anything about whiskey, so we were like, so what do we need? Read some books, found out that basically 200 years ago you did floor malting. You use barley, you use peat to smoke your grain. And then you need an oven, and you need a place where you can do the floor malting. All that came together in an abattoir. So Mogens, the father of the 3 brothers, he was a butcher and had an abattoir. So we could use his facility, or his abattoir, to in the freezer we could do the floor malting, control the temperature. In the kiln where he would smoke his meat, we could dry the grain, with peat, local peat. He had a meat grinder where he minced his meat. We could grind the grain. So we used everything from the abattoir to make a whiskey. And the idea was to make a Scotch single malt. That was the kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to do an Ardbeg from 1977. That was kind of the goal for us.
I mean, who wouldn't, quite frankly, who wouldn't?
Exactly. You need to have something to go for, and Ardbeg was extraordinary. We thought at that point of time. Then how do you bring in the land? Well, Stauning is at the west coast in Denmark. It's flat, it's windy, it's at the same height as Islay when you look on a map. So again, Ardbeg, Islay, Denmark, west coast, windy, salty, all that, and it's farming land. West coast Denmark is a lot of farming land. So you have the peat in the ground, you have the grain, you have the water. The best water in Denmark is in our area. So it kind of all came together. Ardbeg, Islay, west coast, single malt. Let's do that. But then that's another story that we changed, and we're going to taste the rye in a bit. It changed radically to another type of whiskey in a few years.
Yeah, which is so exciting. Before we move on to the rye, we've got some guesses coming in. So Ali says you were one of the engineers. Green Tears Green reckons you're a teacher. Ian saying doctor. Lawrence also echoes doctor. And Gareth says you're too talkative for an engineer. Good storyteller, I think teacher. Reveal. Which was your role before?
I'm an engineer, construction engineer. Yeah.
So who got it right? Look, Ali got it right, and Gareth definitely got it wrong. This is a talkative engineer we have right here.
Exactly. And actually, my wife she's an architect, and we often kind of kid each other with saying she should be the engineer, I should be the architect. So I'm a talkative engineer. Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect. But like you say, complementary skill sets from everyone, perfect for whiskey making.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's good. So we've got the rye whiskey here. Tell us a bit about, well, we all have a nose. I'm going to get you to talk us through it in a second, but I literally can't resist because it smells so great and we're already getting some tasting notes through. Why did you decide to kind of branch from single malt into rye? What drove that decision?
Well, actually, I'm going to say his name, but I'm probably not allowed to do it. Jim Murray. We met Jim Murray in 2006, and he tasted our very first alcohol, our new make smoky whiskey. And he actually said, this reminds me of Ardbeg from the end period of the 70s. And we were just like, what the boom? And during this conversation, he said, but why don't you make rye? Rye whiskey. It's my favorite type of whiskey. I think it's going to rocket through all whiskeys in a few years. People are going to find it interesting again. And Denmark is all about rye. I think for 1,000 years we've been using rye. The Vikings did rye bread 1,000 years ago. So somehow, if you go to school today, you open the lunchbox, the kids' lunchbox, you will find rye bread in the lunchbox. So somehow it's more original to use the rye in Denmark. And again, starting up, making a copy of a product, in the beginning, that's okay. I sometimes kid, and I'm going to become unpopular now. I sometimes kid with saying that's what the Japanese does. They make a copy of a Scotch whiskey. They do it quite well. Sorry.
Well, no. I was going to say that is an interesting rabbit hole to go down with the recent revelations and new rules around what can be called Japanese whiskey and what can't. But I feel like we need to put a pin in that for another time, so we could be here till 10 o'clock.
Exactly. And then we thought, well, we want to be original. We want to create our own products. We want to create a Nordic whiskey. Like we had the new Nordic food wave coming from Denmark, looking at your raw material, how do you use that the best? So we kind of embraced that and said, yes, it's like an artist. It's not great to do a copy. We want to create our own product, the rye. So let's try to work with the rye and see how that happened. And we did it we didn't know anything about whiskey again. So what we did was to do a rye in a single malt way. So double distilled, floor malted, again, floor malted rye, double distilled, distilled over open fire. So direct heated stills. So kind of the old traditional way of making whiskey, but making a rye whiskey. How would that turn out? And that really changed the style of the whiskey a lot. So I would say we don't do a Canadian type of rye. We don't do an American type of rye. It's more like a single malt in style, this whiskey.
Which is fascinating. A malting rye, I gather, is not the easiest process.
No, it's terrible. Absolutely. It's horrible to work with. And again, for engineers, we know a thing or two about constructing things, and we decided we started with floor malting by hand in an abattoir, but we quickly found out this is way too hard work. In the beginning, the first day you need to turn it 1 or 2 times a day, but the last day you need to turn it, every half hour, 24 hours a day. It's very, very hard. So we designed machines that could turn the grain on the floor automatically. They steep the grain on the floor with sprayers, and then turn it so we can keep the moisture content even in all layer, the temperature the same, getting rid of that carbon dioxide and getting some oxygen into the grain. So now we have 2,500 square meters of floor malting in Stauning whiskey.
That feels like a big area.
It is a huge area. 4 lanes of floor malting. We have 12 ton of grain per floor. So a full house is 48 ton of grain, either barley or rye. We do both on the floor malting. So trying to keep the originality.
Yeah, and I guess at some point, is that your ambition to keep doing your own floor malting? Because once you get to a certain size, you're going to need even more.
So actually, we are almost at full capacity right now, and that's about a 1 million liter of whiskey per year.
Wow!
All is 100% is floor malt at a distillery.
That's incredible. Yeah. Because obviously, a handful of Scotch distilleries do a proportion of floor malting, but to do 1 million liters a year of all floor malt seems like a huge endeavor to me.
It is, but we've got it under control now, and what it gives us, I can't say it gives a better whiskey, because that's whiskey is the best. You can't say it, but it gives us flexibility, so we can play around with different kinds of grain. It's local grain. The farmers, it's 2 farmers, local farmers. It's friends from school that does the farming for us, so we can talk to them about new types and how to grow it. We can smoke with seaweed if we want to, or wood, or we do heather smoked also. So it gives us flexibility in production to do it ourselves, 100% ourselves.
Which is fantastic. I'm just going to read out some nosing notes, because then we need to talk about this whiskey in particular, because there's a very interesting barrel situation happening. So what are people getting? Alistair, I make an Italian herb bread that smells like this. Yes, please. We'll get on to why that might be in a sec. Steve says thick plum jam taste with a hint of cream. Ian Jambo Rain, Raydoc's bubble bath and tequila on the nose. Rob, no, you said forest. That's all I can smell. We've got lots more here. Colin saying this dram is beautiful. Steve, saying this dram is beautiful. Richard inviting himself, saying, I'd love to go for a tour of the distillery. Are you open for visitors when COVID is not a thing?
We are open now, and we have about 20,000 guests per year at the distillery for tours.
Fantastic. 20,000, that's big. So lots more. So L. Sutton is saying it tastes more like a malt than a rye, which is interesting. And Pesho is saying there's almost a chocolate note on the finish. Now, let's crack on with it. Can you chat us through the nose of this and the palate, and why you've chosen to use a vermouth cask situation, which is where I think some of these herbally vibes are coming from?
Yeah, well, actually, when you take our rye, when we make a rye, the most rye is aged in a Virgin American white oak cask, Missouri white oak, like you typically would do in the US. And when you nose this, it's not as spicy and like the American types of rye. This is more kind of subtle. You have some apples, you have some orange, a lot of orange, I think, in this. And that is mostly from the vermouth cask, not from the virgin cask. We have this. We have some anise, this licorice, and you usually get that in rye. I had a tasting with Dad's Hat last week at the Whiskey Cast in the US. They also have licorice in their rye, so that's very predominant also. Then you have the freshly baked rye, and if you don't eat a lot of rye bread, you won't know the smell of freshly baked rye. But it is a very special smell. It is not like old or finished rye bread. That's the sweetness to the smell of this. Some dried fruits also.
Definitely some dried fruit. And slightly incensey to me. There's like something like you walk into a room and it's filled with this like really aromatic, deep incense. It's beautiful.
Especially the orange. I get a lot of orange right now. Or citrus peels. And actually citrus is one of the key elements in our new make. When you do this floor malting, and we do an extremely special way of mashing to get solids out in the wort. We want solids from the wort into the wash bags. You won't do that in many distilleries today because you want a clear wort. But as we do direct heated stills, we want some solids that we can kind of scorch inside the still. So you get this caramel, kind of Scotch caramel, roasted caramel. You also get that, especially in the flavor.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Shall we have a taste?
Yes.
Cheers. Yes. Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
And it's a bit like a Manhattan, a really strong Manhattan.
We have had some queries come through on this note, which I'm quite enjoying very much. I feel like cocktails is a bit of theme. Ali's saying it's like a rye Manhattan made with Carpano Antica and an orange twist, which is the most specific vermouth call out I think I've ever heard, and I love it. Yeah. So when you were deciding the vermouth casks, was one of the 9 having a hankering for a Manhattan? What took you down this path?
Well, we love Manhattan in Stauning whiskey. Boulevardier, Manhattan, the bitter, strong type of cocktails. We really enjoy that. Also, Lo just mentioned the old fashioned. I love old fashions too, but I'm especially fond of these Boulevardier and Manhattans. Sazerac also mentioned earlier. Kind of a punchy. It's a drink, a cocktail you just don't throw down. You need to sit and enjoy over time. So we've done a lot of experiments with our rye over the last 3-4 years, where we bought all types of casks we could get our hands on. Rum casks, I think we have 12 or 15 types of rum. We have Moscatel, we have Masala, we have Mezcal, we have Oloroso, we have Calvados, Armagnac, all different kinds. And we wanted to see what fits a Stauning whiskey, because usually in the beginning you would go for Pedro Jimenez or Oloroso, kind of classical ex-bourbon cask, stuff like that. But then we have a different approach to our whiskey. So there might be other stuff that fits our Danish rye better than in the US or in Canada and other places. And one of the really good ones was the Spanish vermouth. That really was, and I think actually after 2 weeks we were like, what's going on? 2 weeks of aging with this vermouth was just like, this is incredible, insane. So we kept on aging, and it just became better and better and better and better until a point where kind of the cask takes over. And you, in our world, you don't want the cask to take over. This is like, it's like hot sauce. If you use too much hot sauce on your food, you only taste overpowers. Yeah. And I think actually a lot of whiskeys today overpower the distillery character of the whiskey, and you often see that when you get old. We would of course like to have older whiskeys, but this is 3.5 years old. This stuff. I put hot sauce and everything. Well, I do too. I like Tabasco.
And he just piped up from off screen saying he puts hot sauce on everything. I'm sure there are some people like that. I mean, I can only deal with the tiniest amount of heat. So yeah, it wouldn't take much for it to overpower. We had a few more questions come through for you, which is really interesting. So Richard asked one when we were back talking about sort of the malting floors and the side of the distillery. And he's saying it's a great product. Like, were you ever worried about the degree of investment in the distillery when you're growing it to get to that sort of size and stature?
Well, we were so fortunate that in 2014 we were approached by Distill Ventures in London. They do cooperate with Diageo, and they approached us and said, "You make some amazing stuff. Can we invest in your distillery?" And we were actually looking for investors because everything we made was sold out instantly. So we had a problem. We needed to grow. And in Denmark, banks are not super fond of investing in distilleries and breweries because they've had some bad years. So we were like, should we get investors? Should we get banks? What would be the appropriate thing to do? And with Diageo, we got an investment that has a clever investment, as we call it, because you can get feedback. You have some people you can work together with. And we're working a lot together with the production in Scotland, single malt production, the people working there, 60, 70-year-old guys from Scotland comes to Denmark and talk to us. And we've convinced 1 or 2 now from the Scottish whiskey industry, people working as managing directors in Scottish distilleries, to drink Danish whiskey and even finding it better than some of the Scots. That's like, whoo-hoo! That's amazing.
I mean, why not though? I think this is one of, for me personally, the biggest joy in tasting spirits and judging lots of spirits is that great spirits come from all around the world. Like, why limit yourself to one category? You're missing out on so much joy, so much flavor, so much expertise and experimentation. If you're like, I only drink Scotch, I only drink bourbon, I only do this, it's like throw open the gates of all the potential.
But I would say it was extremely important for us. We still have control over the distillery, and we want to have that because this is our baby, this is our child. We need to grow it and to experiment so that they don't disturb us in our daily production. We decide everything ourselves. We have one person from Diageo in our board, and that's it. So actually quite cool. And so that we got some money to play around with, and then we could design this distillery. And if you've seen pictures of the distillery, you should go to website. It's a very modern looking distillery, very Danish style distillery, modern Danish design. And it's actually one of my friends, Morten, one of my oldest friends, that's the architect of the distillery. So we've again tried to keep it local, keep it with French, using local contractors, electricians, carpenters to help us build this distillery. Very important.
I love that so much. Keeping it all close knit and local. Just one question before we start to think about bringing the rest of the team back. Gareth says he loves the dark color on it. Is that all from the ex-Spanish vermouth casks?
So no, I would say now I don't know if you can see the picture on this. I have two bottles. I know we probably can't see the difference, but it's a bit more red. It's a bit more red. The El Clásico. This is our bastard. This is a rye aged in mezcal casks, and the mezcal doesn't give a lot of color. So it's a bit more red in the color. But it was actually the virgin cask from the beginning that did a lot of the coloring. This we don't add color. It's just directly from the casks.
Which is very, very cool. Your Uncle Vanya's being a bit cheeky. Are we allowed to ask what the vermouth brand? Can we find it? So I'm saying you're allowed to ask. Whether or not Alex will tell us is another matter.
and to be honest, I can't remember the name right now. It's not to be cheeky, but I actually can't remember. But I can send it to you in an email. If you send me an email, I'll find out to you.
Fantastic. We want to know. The people want to know. They're intrigued by the vermouth. Just some extra little comments. Green Tea is Green and Kevin O is saying that they want to plan a pour and sip outing to Denmark for a distillery tour and tasting. I mean, when the world changes, let's see. Who else? I mean, there are so many comments. Steve Coleman Williams wants a t-shirt. He's admiring your t-shirt quite a lot. Kevin again saying, yeah, it's great. It's fabulous. I love the font, actually. Really, really great. Mike Pizarro, it reminds me of a mint licorice herbal tea I have. And there's a handful of people saying they've snapped up bottles, which is really great. So wonderful. I mean, what a treat. I feel like this is rye whiskey that is gorgeous. It's experimental, but it works and it all comes together, and it's actually making me want more rye and a cocktail at the same time, which I'm enjoying.
Fantastic. Great.
Thank you so much for chatting us through everything.
You're welcome.
So this has been a rye extravaganza, as I said. Let's bring back Lo and bring back Andy. And again, we've got probably like another 5 minutes or so, everyone. So keep your questions coming. Fantastic. How are you both doing?
All right.
All right.
Yes, lovely brands, I have to say. What I find really interesting is like we're talking about rye whiskey here from opposite ends of the world, really, definitely. We're talking about weather. I mean, as well, like for you guys in Baltimore, the climate is so different for you guys in Denmark. I mean, how does that play for you in Baltimore, and then for you, Alex, in Denmark, the climate, and then dealing with rye as a grain?
Well, I don't know about climate in Baltimore. I've never been there. Sorry. The climate in Denmark is like Scotland.
Yeah.
So we don't have temperatures like this, and it's pretty much like this. And when it's high, and it's high today, it's kind of record-breaking temperatures. Today we have 30 degrees. I'm sitting here sweating. It's terrible. But usually a warm summer in Denmark is 20 degrees, and winter is 3 to 5 degrees. So it's I guess, and if I know USA right, it's probably warmer in Baltimore, but
No, we have a very subtropical climate, especially here in Maryland. So we go through those extreme weather changes, and it could be 100 degrees here tomorrow, and then by the next week it'll be down into the 60s, the 50s even. So we do have large fluctuation, and that actually does help us as far as our aging process goes, because you see our whiskey expand when it's hot, contract when it's cold, into and out of the barrels, and that's why we have such a natural aging process, and we're able to get on those shelves a little bit quicker.
Yeah, fantastic. So I guess from that, although I do dispute Alex saying that the weather's like Scotland, I don't know if it's ever been 30 degrees in Scotland, ever in Scotland. So I guess from that, you'd say, Lo, your whiskey would mature at a slightly quicker pace, I guess, than over in Denmark with the extraction and all of this happening.
Yeah, so we do see the remaining flavor profile that we want is basically going to come directly from the barrel and the woods that we use. So because we have such extreme temperatures, you do see that expansion and contraction a lot quicker. I'm not too familiar with the climate out there, but as far as I understand, main draw when it comes to American whiskeys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. Now, regular viewers will know that about this point of the evening, we set you a task. And as this is the second tasting of the month, we need to ask you guys to pick your favourite dram from the box. We know we have two guests here, but don't let that sway you. And we want to hear your dram for the night as well. And as we go on to that, just to give you all some thinking time, we've got a question from your Uncle Vanya for both our guests, actually. Where is the highest demand for your whiskey apart from home? Curious where you're shipping your beautiful rye to most, which is a great question, actually. Where in the world is drinking rye?
You want to start? No.
Yes, please. Thank you. So for us, our first market was actually Japan. So Japan, as you know, has a huge whiskey market, and we actually had to specially make our labels, and it was a very exciting time around here. So I'd say outside of the U.S., Japan might be one of the larger markets.
For us, I can say that at the moment it's absolutely Germany. We have, as I mentioned, we have 20,000 guests per year at the distillery and growing rapidly. Well, not in Corona times, but half of these guests are from Germany. So a lot of tourists go back to Germany and talk about Stauning, and it sells very, very well. Then it's France and UK. We just started in France last year, and UK also. And now we've just shipped to the US, and that might become a big surprise to us because we opened up the 1st of June, and we sent, I think it was 1 pallet or something, 2 pallets, and they're talking about it's gone now. So that's super interesting. So we've had to send more pallets to the US, and we didn't figure that out. You know, we thought that this is going to take some time, but let's see. Maybe first interest is good, and then things are going down later on. But I believe a lot in the US actually with our whiskies.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, obviously I am not American, I'm very much British, but having traveled a fair bit pre-coronavirus in the US, there are like these cocktail and drinks capitals sort of peppered everywhere where people are just so searching for, they're on a quest for these new flavors, new brands, new distilleries, and it's amazing to see. I want some more adventurous drinkers. I mean, obviously at Pour and Sip, we're very adventurous with our whiskey, but we need to spread the word. We need to tell more people about whiskey.
Yeah. Is there a Baltimore cocktail? Like, you know, New Orleans and Sazerac as being so kind of, you know, New Orleans. Is there a Baltimore cocktail?
So our signature cocktail is actually called the Black Eyed Rye, which is a take on the Black Eyed Susan, which is the Maryland cocktail. Our Black Eyed Rye is basically using our blackberry simple syrup, a little bit of ginger beer. It can actually be garnished with blackberries and mint. And then, of course, our signature rye whiskey. A little bit of
beautiful.
Beautiful. Andy, we have got so many votes coming in. Where are we going to start with this?
I'm trying to find the start of the comments where people started because it's gone down too far. Jeff Stauning by 1 point. Ali C Stauning, but I really want to try some of Sagamore's own stuff. Steve Coleman Williams Stauning on both counts. Close second for me is the Bladnock. David Norcross, Bal Blair, and Sagamore, both my favourites. Green tea is green. For me tonight, I would say the Sagamore is the most immediate appeal, but Stauning, I'm pronouncing this wrong. You know what? I'm really sorry, Alex. I think it's an English thing when I see A and U next to each other.
It's totally okay. And I had one guy from the UK said Stauning. So it's like, okay, it's okay then. Stauning.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be worse. I mean, it could be the Scottish names that are impossible for anyone to pronounce. Green tea is green. For me tonight, I said Sagamore is most immediate appeal, but Stauning has a fuller flavour, so Stauning it is. Alistair Taft, Stauning for me both tonight have been ordered. That's what we like to see. Dram of the night, Sagamore, but I flipping love the Stauning, and Dram of the box, Bladnock, Steve Chant. Christy, do you want to take a few of the others?
I will. So Ian Jamberrain, Glenn Farkas and Bladnock joint winners this month. Wild-Eyed Bill, that's the best username ever. Best of the box, Sagamore. David Coleman, Stauning takes it for me, but I love Sagamore. Likely to buy both. can you tell I'm a newbie? Yes, welcome on board to all the newbies.
That's you've what we say, caught the bug. You have caught the bug.
Caught the bug. Caught the bug.
Worse for you.
So we've got Ian Turner saying Sagamore, but only just 51 to 49%. I mean, for goodness sake, let's not talk about referendums, please. James Fallon, the most interesting dram, Stauning without doubt, very unusual flavours for a whiskey for me. Richard Francis, I love the different versions of rye, a real adventure. So there's basically votes for everyone, which I'm really here for. I feel like this has been a really exciting box for me. So for you guys context, we had 3 single malts from Scotland. Yeah, we were all Scotch last time, weren't we? Now we have our 2 ryes for our Rye Day Thursday. Rye Day is the new Friday, we could say.
Tomorrow is Friday. Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic stuff. So honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you both join us. Thank you so much, especially for taking the time, all different times of the day and night from all over the world. It's mega, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Amazing. And for everyone watching, obviously we'll be back with a new box next month. I'm just double checking the dates, all important. We'll be on the 1st of July and the 15th of July. So mark your diaries now. We'll do 3 drams on the 1st, 2 on the 2nd.
We've got another 3-week break, haven't we, Christy, from the 15th of July to August.
I know, it's very upsetting. I hate it when the month's full where we have like a 3-week gap rather than a 1-week gap. It's just not right. But we'll be fine. We'll get through it. And then just to say as well, if anyone did try to tune in on Facebook this evening, really apologies for that. I'm not really sure what's happened. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's us, who knows. But hopefully you can catch us and watch us back on YouTube and Twitter. We will be here for this month. And hopefully we'll be back on all 3 platforms next month.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. And we will see you in a couple of weeks for another Pour and Sip extravaganza.
Definitely. And don't forget, in between times, you can catch us on social media at Pour and Sip Club, on the PNS Digest. There's the member store. There's rewards. Don't forget. We are not just about the lives, although we love the lives. So much fun. So yeah, keep in touch all month long. And thank you again to Lo, and thank you to Alex. And I'm going to raise a glass to you both.